In this video, we cover topic 13.1, user-defined data types for Cambridge Computer Science 9618 A-Level. So let's go ahead and take a look at our learning targets for today. So candidates should be able to show understanding of why user-defined types are necessary, defining used non-composite types, including using the term enumerated and pointer, so we'll be doing that today, defining used composite data types, including set, record, and class or object, we'll be going over those as well, choose and design an appropriate user-defined data type for a given problem, we'll be covering that by looking at past exam questions. So, enumerated data types. What are enumerated data types? These are non-composite data types, meaning they're made of a single data type made by the programmer. Examples of non-composite data types that are not made by the programmer that are already pre-existing are strings, integers, chars, boolean, etc. And now each of these reference specific things. They do not reference another data type. For example, strings do not refer to boolean values. They're non-composite. They only refer to specific things. Another example of a non-composite data type is a pointer, which is the value of the address in memory of a different variable. It does not reference another data type. Now, sometimes programs can be very large, and a programmer can choose to create their own data types. An enumerated data type is a non-composite data type and therefore does not reference another type of data. So enumerated data type is non-composite. Now, with an enumerated data, you must define it before an identifier can be created. Now, the enumerated data does not reference the char, the boolean, the integer, the string, whatever it may be, because the programmer is creating the data type, not using a pre-existing one inside the programming language. So when we talk about enumerated data and user-defined data types, we're talking about data types that don't already exist inside the programming language. Because char, which references a character, already exists, it's not enumerated data. We just say it's non-composite because it only refers to one type of data. When you look at pseudocode, enumerated data types may look like strings, but they're not. They don't have quotes around them. Remember, strings, you must have those quotes around the word to make it a string. Enumerated data types, they're not variables. They're actual custom data types chosen by the programmer. So to be clear about non-composite doesn't mean enumerated. Non-composite, remember, refers to only one specific data type. Enumerated data types are non-composite. Non-composite are not enumerated. So a non-composite data type doesn't reference another data type, and there's some that are already pre-existing. For example, integers. These already pre-exist inside a programming language. They're whole numbers and only whole numbers. It doesn't refer to another data type such as boolean, string, real, single, or double. It only deals with whole numbers. Boolean refers to true and false. No other data type. Real. This data does not refer to another. It deals with numbers that contain decimals. Strings, they're also pre-existing in a programming language. Stores 0 or more characters, doesn't refer to another data type. Char, stores 1 character, doesn't refer to another data type. Pointer, points to the location of where data is stored on the memory. There is no other data type involved here. So this is, what do we have here? This is a pointer. On the RAM, it has the locations of where information is stored. For example, here, the address 8000, we have the value of 1000, which points to address 1000 that contains a capital C. Here at address 8002, it points to address 2000, which points to a capital K. Address 8004, we have points to address 3000, which contains a capital M, and then 8006, we have the pointer which points to address 4000. We go to address 4000, we can find a capital N there. That is an example of a pointer. Now, enumerated data type pseudocode. In pseudocode, you put the data inside a parentheses. Here is an example. We have our data type called directions. Directions is not a pre-existing data type inside the program. Because we are creating our own custom data type called directions, we are creating an enumerated data type. Here are the directions. They consist of north, south, east, and west, and we store that in directions. And then we simply end the type, and our pseudocode is done. Notice there are no quotes here, only parentheses. The directions will only refer to north, south, east, and west. It will not refer to anything else, just those 4 directions. These are non-composite because directions only refers to directions. It doesn't refer to another data type. So this enumerated data, along with all other enumerated data, are non-composite data types. Okay, let's keep rolling here. So once enumerated data types are defined, you can declare variables and assign values to them. So we had our custom data type directions, which consisted of north, south, east, and west. And now, because we have defined them, we can declare a variable. So I can declare direction 1 as directions. If I try to do that without identifying what directions are, I'm going to get an error in my code. But because I've created my own custom data type, I can now declare it as directions. I can also assign values. For example, direction 1, maybe I want it to be directions.north. I'm accessing directions. What data item am I accessing? .north. I'm assigning the value to direction 1. Now remember, all enumerated data types are considered non-composite data types. So let's program an enumerated data type. Let's take a look at an example. Enumerated data types are for things that do not change. Take, for example, the days of the week. The days of the week are always the same and never change. We always start on Sunday, then we go Monday, Tuesday, all the way through Saturday, and it starts over. We can create an enumerated data type for days of the week. Now in VB, we do not put the enumerated data in parentheses, we just make a list. When you make enumerated data types, it is ordinal. Now what that means is the first set of data in the list is 0, the second is 1, and so on all the way. So Monday would be 0, Tuesday would be 1, Wednesday would be 2, Thursday would be 3, Friday would be 4, Saturday would be 5, Sunday would be 6. So we're going to do days of the week. Can we use the list for days of the week? Let's go ahead and switch over to VB so we can see it in action. So here's how you create your own enumerated data. So we have public enum days, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. Now because it is ordinal, that means it's a list. So in this setup, Sunday is 0, Monday is 1, Saturday all the way down is 6. So now that I've created it, I can declare a variable, and this will also go over why you may want to create your own custom data type. So here we have dim this day as days. Days refers to my enumerated custom data type. Days does not exist inside the programming language. Because it does not exist, we are creating what we call enumerated data type, which is non-composite. Now here I have a non-composite data type that pre-exists, which is not enumerated, which is day, which is going to be a string. I have if day equals Friday, then one more day to go until the weekend. That's one way to do it. Another way to do it is I can set this day, which is part of days, equal to days dot Monday. And then I can say if this day is equal to days.Sunday or this day equals days.Saturday, then we say it's the weekend. If not, we say it's a weekday. If we run this, we should see 2 console.write lines. So let's go ahead and run this. And we see when we run our program, it says it's a weekday. We do not see one more day to go until the weekend. Well, we set day equal to Friday, and this is why you may want to use enumerated data types. When you're working with strings, it is very possible to have a typo. And if you look closely, here I have Friday. Here I have Friday with a space. If I spell Friday incorrectly, that changes everything. Down here, if I try to do Saturday and I spell it wrong, it's going to say, hey, you have an error because that's not part of your enumerated data type. So this is why you may want to use enumerated data types. It keeps your code cleaner and can, used in the right way, help you prevent mistakes. So this is how enumerated data types work. Now let's switch back into our PowerPoint presentation. Now that we've done enumerated data types and non-composite, let's talk about composite data types. A composite user-defined data type has a definition with at least one other type. We call these data types records. The most common is a record data type of 4 composite data types. It's a data type that contains a fixed number of components, with each component having a value which can be different data types. Let's take a look at our custom data type, which is going to be a composite data type, employee record. It consists of the following things. It consists of employee first name, which refers to a string, employee family name, which we've set as a string, date employed, which is a date, and salary, which we've set as a real data type. Because it references more than one data type, we say it's composite, and the most common type of composite data type is a record, and this is a record. So I can declare employee 1 as an employee record, and now I have access to first name, family name, date employed, and salary, which all belongs to employee 1. This allows me to keep my code more organized. I can then access each of these by using a dot. I can do employee 1 dot date employed, and then I can insert the date, May 16th, 2017. Now notice that inside the data type, our employee record, we have variables of other data types. In this case, inside the employee record data type, we have 2 strings, a date, and a real data type. Employee record references more than one data type, and because it does that, it is a composite data type, and that makes it a record. Now, just on a special side note here, in VB code, we create records which are known as structures. We don't use the keyword record. Okay, so programming language and composite data types. A set has no structure. It's a collection of finite values that is not organized, and it doesn't have any duplicates. Now, in a set, mathematical operations can be performed on those sets. We can see if a value exists in a set. We can add new data values to the set. We can remove existing data values and add 2 separate sets together. You can also do intersections to see where 2 sets intersect. Now, a 1D array, that could represent a set if there are no duplicated values. Now, record data types, which we call structures in VB.NET, are to be user-defined by the programmer. Record data types are created with components that match the data requirements of the program. For example, I need information about an employee. I need their first name, their last name, the date they were employed, their salary. Now, a record is a collection of items that may have different data types, but they do not have to have different data types. The class, when you're creating an object, is a composite data type that is used in object-oriented programming. When you create a user-defined class, it allows the programmer to utilize the benefits of object-oriented programming. And if you followed any of our object-oriented programming videos, you know that we have to give properties or attributes for each object. And a class gives the properties of different data types and methods for an object. We have strings, integers. We've used all that in object-oriented programming because it refers to more than one data type for that object that is also composite. An array holds a collection of items of the same data type that are indexed. Now, an array is not always the same data type. The data type is an array that holds elements of other data types. When you create an array, it's not always going to be an array of strings. It's not always going to be an array of integers. It can be, the array is the data type. A lot of times students will say, well, an array, if you set it as a set of integers, it refers to one data type. An array is the data type, and it holds elements of other data types. You can have an array of integers, an array of strings, an array of Boolean values. You can do whatever you want, but it's not always going to be the same. A list holds a collection of items of different data types. A set, records, an array, and a list are categorized under composite data types. So if they ask you for examples of composite data types, you can pick a set, which allows you to do mathematical operations. You can do a record, which refers to more than one data type, an array, which is a data type that holds elements of other data types, and a list holds a collection of items of different data types. So we're going to create a record, and this means it's going to be a composite data type. A student has a first name, a last name, and an ID number. We can use a record to keep track of all of these and keep it organized. Our data type is called student information. So let's take a look at some example code here, and we also have a video on this if you want to watch the video and program along. But let's take a look at the code. So here we have our public structure, which tells us it's a record that we have called student. And student refers to first name, which is a string, last name as a string, and ID number as an integer. We're referring to more than one data type here. So I have student information. I can access these things, which is part of student, by using a dot. What is the student's first name? I can record that by student information, which is my variable of data type student. I type in dot, and now I can access everything in student. What is in student? First name, last name, ID number. If I'm asking for the student's first name, student information.first name equals console.readline. What is the student's last name? Student information.last name, console.readline. What is the student's ID number? Student information.ID number. It makes it very easy to keep my code organized, because rather than student information first name, student information last name, student information ID number, I can just set it as a student, and I can just add these right here. If I wanted to use separate variables, I would need, for 2 students, I would need 6 variables. Student information 1, first name. Student information 2, last name. Student information 1, ID number. Student information 2, first name. I mean, it just goes on. That's just going to take up unnecessary space. By creating a record, I can access the same thing for each individual variable because it's been declared as a data type student. So we're going to actually create a composite data type now. So here's our exercise. Create a composite data type that records the following information under a record set called athlete that records the following information. They want to record sport and years of experience. So if they've played 1 year, we're going to consider them a rookie. If they've played 2 to 5 years, we're going to say they're a veteran. If they've played 6 or more years, we're going to say they're a pro. Now, we will use a variable called athlete info, which is of the data type athlete. Because athlete info refers to a string and an integer, it is a composite data type. I need you to write code that will generate the following output. The person plays blank and is a blank. So go ahead and pause here and see if you can create this exercise that we have here, incorporating a composite data type. Go ahead and pause now. So I have my record set up right down here, public structure athlete. I have sport as string, years experience as an integer. Athlete is not a data type that exists inside a programming language because we've created it and we refer to more than one data type. We call this a record. So now what I can do is I can do what sport do you play? And then what I can do is, instead of having 500 different variables trying to keep track of sports and years experience, I can simply add new athletes and simply reference the data type athlete. So what I'm going to do is athlete info, and then I'm going to use a dot. That allows me to access sport, which is a string, and then I can do console.readline, which will store it inside the sport part of athlete. Then I want to ask them how many years have you played? And this would be the experience they have. So I do athlete info again. And then all I'm going to do here is I'm going to access years experience. And then you want to set that equal to console.readline because we are storing it. And then what we can do is we can use if statements. So what we're going to do is fast forward to take a look at those if statements. And then we can use if statements to simply take a look at the athlete info.years experience to determine if they've played less than or equal to 1 year, then they're a rookie. If they have more than 1 year playing experience and less than or equal to 5, they're a veteran. And of course, if they have 6 or more years of experience, they are a pro. So that's how we use composite data types and actually program them. Let's switch back over and take a look at those practice Cambridge questions. Now it's time to look at those Cambridge past exam questions. If you'd like to pause here and give these questions a go, feel free to do so. A particular programming language allows the programmer to define their own data types. This date is an example of a user-defined structured data type. So they have the data type this date, which consists of this day of the data set 1 to 31. Those are not integers. it consists of 1 to 31. If it was integer, we'd also have to include all the numbers before 1 and all the integers after 31. So it's not an integer. This month, which is January to December, it's referring to the abbreviations, but those are not strings because there are no double quotes, and this year as an integer. Variable of this new type is declared as follows. So they're declaring date of birth as the data type this date. Name the non-composite data type used in this day and this month declarations. When I look at this day and this month above, I see that we have data that is given inside a set of parentheses. So I know that because it's non-composite and consists only of that data, that is an enumerated data type. Name the data type of this date. So this date is the data type. It has this day, this month, and it has this year. It's referring to more than one set of data type, so we call that a record. The month value of date of birth needs to be assigned to the variable my month of birth. So we have the variable my month of birth. What is going to be assigned to it? The month value of date of birth. Well, date of birth is a this date, which means I have to select the month value either from this day, this month, or this year. What is the most appropriate data to select of this data type? It is this month. So my month of birth is going to be set to date of birth dot this month. Let's go ahead and take a look at the next one. Annual rainfall data from a number of locations are to be processed in a program. The following data are to be stored. They want us to store the location name, height above sea level to the nearest meter, total rainfall for each month of the year, centimeters to 1 decimal place. A user-defined composite data type is needed. The programmer chooses location rainfall as the name of this data type. A variable of this type can be used to store all the data for one particular location. Write the definition for the data type location rainfall, and they're going to give us 5 easy points here. The data type, they give it to us, location rainfall. Type, location rainfall. What is it storing? Location name. So I'm going to dimensionalize location name as string. Then it wants height above sea level to the nearest meter, which means no decimal places. That means we're dealing with whole numbers. So we're going to declare location height as integer. Then it says total rainfall for each month of the year, centimeters to 1 decimal place. There are 12 months in a year. I'm not going to create 12 different variables inside this data type because by the time you're in A level and even AS or even pre-ACE, you're familiar with a data type that can be used to store 12 months of data, and that is an array. Declare location rainfall as the data type array, 1 to 12, and that is going to be of real data, which allows decimal places to be used, and then to get your final point, you simply in type. I hope you found this video helpful. If you did, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to help our channel grow. We'll see you guys in the next video.